That's what I really wanted you to share about today, is like what you've went through, what you experienced. Like, yeah, it's a lot of hell.
It's been a journey. You know, it's a process. You know, I started at 15 years old. I was 15 years old, Troy, and I remember walking down the street, and I found a way. I found a way to release the pain I didn't even know I had. Because for years prior to that, I was hiding food in my house. I was hiding. I was eating food as a comfort. As a kid,
13, 14 years old, you were hiding
10,
food.
Yeah.
9, 10 even.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was doing that, and then I found a way. I didn't like the way it felt about it. Like I feel full. Right, so I learned a way to get rid of it, and that was the purging at age 15. I remember walking down the street, and I remember I don't remember what the situation was. I just remember walking down the street, and all of a sudden I just put my fingers, you know, in my throat, and I let it out, and I was like, oh my God, like I can do this. And here's the crazy part: after I did it, here's what happened. I felt better. I felt better about myself. So then I learned that I found this way to cope. I found this way that this is a new way I could use this as a mechanism to help me if I don't want to feel. I didn't know at the time that I didn't want to feel, but if I just didn't, something came up.
That was your way of sedating. That was your suppressing,
100%.
repressing
100%.
the pain, whatever emotions you felt
Yeah.
as a child. This is what you dealt with
Absolutely.
this.
So it literally went from that until 2015, when I finally stopped the pattern. Like I could tell you all these situations and all these places and all these things that I tried to do to get myself out of where I was, and ultimately none of it was actually working, because I was simply just running from the problem. I moved 10 to 15 times from college all the way until or high school all the way to after college. I moved 10 to 15 times. I lived in 5 different places in Manhattan. I lived in Florida, I lived in California, I lived in Nevada where I went to college. And everywhere I went, the food problem ran with me. It never left. I was running for myself. So I remember memories being in Florida, and then, you know, between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m., I was binging and purging all night long. And then I thought, I moved with my grandparents in California, you know, trying to figure out who
Were you trying to leave this behind you then, or were you?
Yeah, I was trying to leave and start new, start fresh. And I didn't know I was trying to.
Your mind knew that's what you were trying to do. Got it.
So then I went there, and I remember just eating her food in the cupboards, and ice cream and peanut butter. And then I gained like 50 pounds because I stopped purging. So here's the thing, you know, I look back now and I had this underlying story, Troy, that this is how it's supposed to be. This is how I am. This message that played every single day. Wasn't aware of it. It's just this is how I believed myself at the time, which was, this is how I cope. This is the only way that I know. Like this tape played for year after year after year. This is the only way. I had no other way.
Yeah.
And there was times where, like, I knew there was 2 parts of me. Part of me was like, this is the only way I knew how to live. And the other part of me is that I know recovery is possible. I know that there's another reality that I can create that is inside of me.
Yeah.
I saw it 10 years ago, Troy. I saw it in Manhattan when I wanted to be a TV host, and I went on auditions, and I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to be a model. I wanted to be in the show line, right? But I was doing it for the wrong reason. It was for external gratification. And so guess what I would do in these modeling shoots, Troy? Guess what I would do? I would binge and purge before it and then afterwards for hours. I didn't tell anybody, and I was in pain. I was in a lot of pain, and I didn't know what to work. And every person I went to was looking for a solution, and they couldn't help me because they've never lived it. They've never lived recovery. They never knew how on the other side. They didn't know the other side. They had theories, they had ideas. Hypnotists. I went to hypnotists. I went to eating disorder centers. I went to eating disorder clinics. I was told I had this illness, mental illness. So it went on from 2000 to the end of 2015.
Wow.
15 years living like this, where my dominant thoughts, every moment of the day, Troy, my dominant thoughts were, will I survive today? And pretending that everything's okay, and at the end of the day, I binged and purged. No one knew about it. Not even my wife when I got married. I didn't tell her. All of a sudden, she started seeing Reese's peanut butter cups, on the floors. And she didn't know what was going on. She didn't understand it. Because ultimately, I didn't understand it.
Correct.
That's the reason that I couldn't even talk about it, because I didn't understand it myself. So here's what happened. The end of 2015, it was getting closer. I felt it inside of me.
The answer.
Recovery. And the closer I was coming, the harder I binged. The closer that I felt it was coming, I binged 4, 5, 6, 10 times in an hour. In 1 hour, 10 times. Yes, exactly. So I was binging and purging. I would sit there at the gas station 2 months before I entered the recovery center. I entered a gas station every single night, and it was my thing. I'd go in and out. I'd buy $10 of food in my car, eat it, purge out the bathroom. Then I would run back to my car and hope that he didn't see me sitting there eating it again. And I would then sit and wait, and then go back in there, buy more food, sit in my car, eat it, go to the bathroom 10 times in an hour. So I left there and I broke the pattern. Pattern was gone, but I didn't know how to live now. So the problem right now.
You got to unlearn.
Bingo.
It's the unlearning process.
Bingo. Because they don't teach you how to live. They teach you how to cope with what you have. So I went there and the center in every center in the country, they teach how to cope with eating disorder. You have one for the rest of your life. You have one, right? So I believed I still didn't.
Correct.
Because they also gave me hope there that I didn't. It was but there was these 12-step meetings there too, and they said that I have a food addiction, I have an eating problem. So I knew I didn't. So I switched to psychology and said, no, I don't. So I'm going to find a new way to live. I'm determined. I hired a coach at the time, a life coach, and he gave me this idea of why don't you just have one and sit down and buy one. Buy one.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I can have it? First of all, fine, I can have it.
Yeah.
And he said, just buy one, sit down and eat it. And so I did that. And then he also told me, if I want another one, go back up and buy another one.
Yeah.
And then sit down and eat it. Or buy 2, but don't buy 6. So I'm like, are you kidding me? He's like, yeah, you've been living in a scarcity mindset with food. And I'm like, well, let me put myself in a new psychologist.
Yeah.
So I did that. And it worked. It started to work. I can have this food. Yet I don't have to overeat or binge myself, and that triggers me to binge at nighttime in my mind. So from there, I realized that I actually can create a new way. So I started creating new habits and patterns over the last since then.
So you made some interesting, really massive distinctions.
Yeah.
Like not a lot of people make. And you started able to connect things and kind of almost create a new approach to dealing with it that other people weren't coming in at.
It wasn't perfect. But here's the thing: I wasn't binging and purging. So I wasn't binging. I wasn't in the food. I was free of the thoughts of obsessing. Right?
Yeah.
And I didn't. My goal that year was to be healthy.
Yeah.
So guess what happened? I gained weight.
Yeah.
And then I gave myself permission to eat anything.
Yeah.
And the moment I did it, my mind was free. There was I didn't have an eating disorder anymore. I just was, heavier.
Yeah, you choose. I do that. Yeah. Choose whatever it takes.
I'm
healthy.
Yeah, I'm healthy. That year, I was healthy for the first time in my life.
Awesome.
And I didn't care how much I weighed. And I actually finally started to really change. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. But you know what happened? And I haven't told many people this.
Yeah.
Smoking.
You picked up smoking.
Let me tell you what happened.
Wow.
At the recovery center, there was a place to smoke. There was a place to smoke every day, multiple times a day. So anyway, I was there and I picked up this habit because everyone else was smoking. I was smoking. Yeah. So I left there and I was like one cigarette. And then I was hiding while I was doing it. So nobody knew. I was hoping no one could smell me or see me in my clients. I was like, all right, fine. And then it ended up becoming 2. And then up to a hack.
Yes.
A day.
Like it happens like that.
A day. I was going to this other psychology, like, why is this happening? What's going on? And then I guess what happened? I broke the pattern again. I went to a retreat in Peru, And a requirement for 2 weeks before the retreat in 2016 was no smoking.
Wow.
And I did this on purpose, Troy.
Yeah.
Because the only way I knew to stop a pattern was to break it, and it had to be doing something
Correct.
radically different.
Yes.
And I haven't done it since then, and I'm choosing not to, not want to. But the point is that the challenge is people like they what's the next thing that they're attaching to? There's a process to it all.
Right. I've never met anybody that even does what you do.
Yeah, because
Like-
there isn't. There is
I mean,
not.
literally, I know a lot of
I'm
people
telling you,
that
I
don't
know.
does what you do.
There is.
I'm going to close that around, unless it's in a clinical
Right.
psychology
Right.
setting
Yeah.
at a rehab center,
Yeah.
like a 30-day program for eating disorders specifically, and those are
But-
the only place I've ever
But
seen.
that's
it,
what I was at in the recovery
Yeah.
center, was eating disorder.
Yeah.
For eating disorders. So I had to find another way to stop the pattern. You know what I did last year?
What?
Stop the pattern. 10-day meditation, 120 hours of sitting and meditating, 12 hours a day.
Wow. In silence.
Silence. The first time in my life, it wasn't. I learned how to connect my body sensations, but it didn't happen until day 4. Because day 4, they actually finally taught us Vipassana. First 3 days is Anapana breathing, where you're focusing in one area, and you're focusing there, and you're letting the thoughts come in and out, but your focus is here, in a triangular area of your nose, right? So by day 4, the first time we did Vipassana for an hour, we went outside, and life was different. I cried for the whole break that we had.
You just see colors and sounds and tastes. And
That's
like,
it.
It's like
That's
it's like
it,
holy
right.
crap! It's like a whole different world. You're like
Yep.
light for the first time. You're seeing light for the
That's
first
it.
time.
You know what happened? This was the biggest revelation I got in my entire life. Was I was in the present. I wasn't in the past. I wasn't in the future. I'd never been in the present. I even read The Power of Now. I wasn't in the present reading The Power of Now. I didn't understand it. So I went to this deeper experiential level, being in the now. And I was looking at chickens for half an hour and watching them, and it just, I loved them. I loved the chickens because they looked so peaceful and beautiful. I can appreciate them. And then I looked at the leaves and I could love the leaves. I loved it. I was crying because I loved the leaves. This guy over here that I never even talked to because we were silent, I loved him.
Yes.
I loved him. And you know why I loved him? Because I loved myself. I found love for myself there.
And it's just because they're learning stillness,
Love.
true peace, true love. And that's what everyone's seeking. It's true peace and true love that come right at this second, right at this moment.
Most people believe that suffer with eating disorders, that suffer with bulimia, overeating, undereating, that that's the way you have to live, and you do not. There's another way to live. There's another way that you can live that is not that. It's not who you are. You're not defined by that. That is not who you are, and there's another way. And I can help you. I can absolutely help you find that way, and it doesn't have to happen in 15 years that it took me. It can happen in 90 days. In 90 days, and that's my program.
With Patrick, I was pretty much rock bottom. He's really helped me identify my issues. He didn't identify them for me.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Patrick and what he's been able to do for me in just a relatively short period of time, really less than a week. Working with Patrick is that I control my thoughts, and the thoughts that I have are what control my feelings.
And Patrick leads you through a whole series of missions.
So I was thankful for the great support system from this group and from Patrick that kept me going. I think that plays a big part in how well we do.
I just had a 90-minute session with Patrick Jones, which was amazing. So I would say in working with him, it's super personable. He is so enthusiastic and positive.
I'll be able to take everything that I've learned from Patrick, turn around and help somebody else.